Caution: this game contains scenes of violence and gore, as well as depictions of criminal acts. These acts are strictly punished by law. Please do not attempt to imitate them. This game also contains themes of sexual violence and self-harm. This game is a work of fiction. Any relationship to real persons, groups, places, or crimes is coincidental.
It's currently happening. Hours. It's currently happening. Oh my god, it's so much prettier. It's way more beautiful than I thought it was going to be. Oh my god, it's currently happening, Hours. Riri is standing on shit. Oh my god, look at her. Look at her. She's so pretty with her sword. Oh my god. Stand on shit. Stand on it. Stand on it, queen. I got this. The winged sword that had so easily blocked her own weapon was clearly a D sword. And if she hadn't used it many times before, she wouldn't have been able to block Senna's attacks so easily. Oh yeah? Sakihara was a gigalomaniac too, Nora? Kozue was looking down at them from on top of the shipping container, as if she was a spectator watching a game. Her legs were dangling off the side. Senna was more than a little annoyed at her behavior, considering how she just ruined her surprise attack. But her gaze was locked to her front on Rimi. Rimi's expression was pained. Takumi Nishijo was lying on the ground behind her, moaning in shock. Senna was only after him. She wasn't here to fight Rimi. This wasn't a manga or anime. It wasn't realistic at all to try and fight someone with a D-sword. Do you know what that man did? The IR2 formula was his. I know. She cut Senna off. Her answer was calm and sad, but clearly spoken. When she heard this, Senna's grip on her blade tightened even further. Then, if you awaken Taku, something even worse will happen. I'll kill him before that happens. You can't. Senna decided it wasn't worth trying to talk anymore. She brought her weapon lower, ready to strike with it. Rimi, however, was simply standing there. With long strides, she could be there in 5 steps. 3 seconds would be all it took. Senna didn't hesitate. She charged straight at Rimi. She slashed with her D-sword. Rimi tried to block it as she did before, but fainted, bitch. Huh? Senna's attack was a The blade passed through Rimi's sword. It's blue again. She'd canceled the real boot. Right now, Senna's D-sword was just a delusion. She's so smart. It couldn't touch anything, it couldn't cut anything, it couldn't kill anyone. But that was just what Senna wanted. Rimi had been ready to block the blade. She was caught off guard for an instant. By the time she'd figured out what happened, Senna was already past her and just 2 steps away from Takumi. It only took an instant to do another real boot. Now! Takumi's terror-stricken eyes were pointed straight at Senna. It made the real boot easy. The D-sword, now real again, was only inches from piercing his heart. Senna. Who the fuck said... Is that Mr. Nozomi? She saw someone in the corner of her vision. When she heard the voice, it stirred violent emotions within her. Her arm missed. No, that's the voice of him. And the blade only grazed Takumi's leg before slamming into the concrete next to him. Senna slowly looked up. You! And gasped. A man was standing at the edge of the roof, the sun setting behind him, his countenance like a ghost. His face was pale and ashen. The homeless bum was her dad? His eyes were bloodshot and sunk deep into his head. His head was slumped forward, expressionless. When she saw him, Senna stopped caring about Takumi at all. It was the man Senna chased for so long. The man she hated. The man who abandoned her and betrayed her family. And now he was right in front of her. I finally found you. Senna took a step toward him. She gritted her teeth to keep the hate welling up from her taking control. She readied her D-sword again. She took another step. I didn't have a choice. I had to offer up your mother as a
お前の母さんを
sacrifice.
生贄
It
に
was the
捧げ
only
るしか
thing
な
I
かっ
could
た
do.
黙れ
Shut up!
母さんの最
Your mother's end was a
とても
very
安
peaceful
らかな
one,
ものだ
so Senna, don't worry.
母さんのおかげで
Thanks to your mother,
素
the
晴らしい
experiment was a
実験
huge
結果が
success.
出た
Her sacrifice helped the whole world.
母お前も
You can be
母
proud
さん
of
の
what
功
she
績を
accomplished.
誇っていい
黙れよ
Shut up! The blood rushed to Senna's head. The man was now all she could see. She ran. She got there in an instant. Senna closed the distance between them in the blink of an eye. And when she was close enough, stabbed the D sword deep into his body. This had been Senna's most fervent wish. She'd spent every day wandering Shibuya just so she could someday kill him. She dreamed of killing him almost every night.
やっと
I can finally
母さんの
get revenge from Mom. She tried to pull out the sword. She tried to back away from him, but the sword wouldn't come out. The man fell forward and embraced her.
ユーゼ
Get off of
優
me!
しく触るな
Don't touch me! All the hairs on her body stood up in revulsion. It was far too late for this. The bond between Senna and her father had long since been cut, but for some reason she was shocked to find that she couldn't push him away. His warmth. The reality of having her father here, right in front of her, Senna's hands were turning red.
私はこうな
I,
の
this isn't,
あなたが
This is the
this is
delusion
the
you
delusion
desired.
you desired. What? It is fucking currently happening hours. Oh my god! She heard whispering and then she knew. Errors slipped into dead spots. Psychic attacks, illusions. Her delusions had been read. By the time she realized what had happened, it was too late. She lost her balance. Both her and the man fell off the edge of the roof. The ground, 8 stories beneath her, seemed so far away. All I could do was watch without understanding at all what was going on. Senna suddenly ran toward the edge of the roof, and then for no reason lost her balance and began to fall. Her body was just about to appear off the edge. She's gonna fall. All I could do was whisper, my eyes closed tightly. Suicide. Senna was gonna kill herself by throwing herself off the roof. I didn't know why, I didn't want to know. She attacked me for no reason, and now she'd been punished. She turned out to be an enemy too. But no matter how much I waited, I didn't hear the sound of her hitting the ground. Nervously, I opened my eyes to see what was going on. Senna hadn't fallen. She was slumped over, and Rimi was next to her. Rimi was holding on to her arm. Had Rimi saved her? Senna had thrown away her D-sword and was crying like a little girl. What had just happened? As far as I could tell, Senna had just tried to kill herself.
辛い思いさせて
I'm sorry for making you suffer,
でも
but
しょうが
I
なかった
had to. What had Rimi done to Senna? She was like a totally different person than the cheerful Rimi I knew. Her face was pained, her voice was sad, there were tears in her eyes. The girl in front of me wasn't the Rimi I knew. Sakihara! I heard a voice in my mind. Kozupi was watching us from the top of the shipping crate. You're done, right? If you're still gonna go thwack, wham, kapow with Senna, Kozupi will stop you. I'll take your body and slice it apart. A cold chill ran down my spine. Kozupi was still using her cheerful voice, but I could tell she was serious. And since I'm a fucking bum-ass nigga without a D-sword, and apparently if I awaken it, something bad will happen, that would be a 2v1 for Rimi, and shit's not gonna look good then, is it? Yeah, we're
もう
done.
終わりもともと
I didn't intend to hurt her
どうこう
anyway.
するつもりはないしタクの前から消えて
If
く
she's
れ
willing
る
to leave Taku
こ
alone,
の
I'll
ま
let
ま
her
解
go.
放する
That's impossible. Because Kozupi and Senna are both friends with Takumi now. Right? Right, Takumi? I couldn't think about anything. If you told me everything that just happened was a dream, I'm sure I would have believed it. Why had Senna attacked me anyway? Was Senna my enemy after all? It's your fault. Sena looked up at me, her face filled with tears. She was still slumped over, and she hadn't even tried to wipe away the tears. She was staring at me with anger in her eyes. It's your fault, my family. I was so confused. I could feel her raw emotions. But what had I done? I never bothered anyone. I didn't even know Sena's family. I also wrote this essay when I was like 10. I was completely harmless. Harmless? She'd read my mind. The thing you created might destroy the world. Destroy the world? Was she another crazy person who read too much? I turned to Remy for help, but Remy had her back to me and was looking out toward the evening sky. You're wasting your time. The way she looked, her voice, was it just me, or did she seem so very, very sad? Taku doesn't know anything. But it sounded like Remy knew everything. Shut up! Everything that's happening in Shibuya right now is because of that formula. Formula? Don't say another word. He really doesn't know anything. It felt like they were talking about me, but I couldn't follow the conversation at all. Do you mean this formula? Kozubi came down from her perch on the shipping crate, carrying my essay. On the back of it were the scribbles I'd done as a boy. IR2. This was the cause of everything happening in Shibuya? Ridiculous. How could a bunch of scribblings on paper have that kind of power? I just draw them to kill some time, I think. It was so long ago I couldn't really remember, but they didn't mean anything at all. I just written down the numbers I'd seen in my dream. It was a dream that had something to do with the subject of my essay. Whose eyes are those? I'd used that phrase for such a long time, and then one day I started to see it more and more clearly in my dreams. And in those dreams, I'd seen the numbers. FUN to the 10th power times N to the 40th power equals IR2. Senna finally wiped away her tears. Her eyes were red. She kept talking, still slumped on the ground, looking at me with anger and frustration in her eyes. The second you created this formula, the world split. The most sophisticated aspect of Noah 2 is the formula that's integrated into its central system. Yeah, I can drink this now.
This formula, it said, has never been solved at any point in human history. One of the Millennium 7? The 7 unsolved mathematical problems with million-dollar prizes being offered for their solutions? No, it's not one of the 7. There were, however, originally 8 problems included in the Millennium series. One was removed before the prize was announced, and that's the one Noah 2 incorporates into its system. Why was it removed?
Because it had the potential to spread misery and disaster throughout the world. What kind of formula can do something like that? The formula describes a type of resonance phenomenon that occurs during the fundamental interactions of electromagnetic forces. It revealed the existence of an unknown power that manifests during proximate action between a specific electromagnetic pulse and a receiver. The search into silent weapons that every nation in the world has built up over the course of 3 decades was instantly rendered obsolete. Finding the solution to the problem would make one equal to God. And you've solved it. It was found in a very, very strange place. In a child's scribblings. IR2. The so-called hardware aspect of Noah 2 derives its godlike powers from this formula. And that's necessary now to get the code samples from the Gigalomaniacs that form the software aspect. Then Noah 2 will begin full operation and give us everything we want. Sometimes I wish Einstein was still alive. I hear he was a powerful gigalomaniac. I'm more interested in reality than in hypotheticals. They say there are only a few gigalomaniacs in the entire world. Can we find enough?
すでに5人分のサンプルは
We have
確保し
5
ました
samples already.
ノア2稼働に十分な
You
数
have
が
enough
集
to
まってい
activate
る
Noah 2 then.
ならば結構
Good.
ただ
But the more samples we have, the more powerful it becomes.
ノア2の能力は向上します特に
And there's one
どうしても
gigalomaniac
サンプル
boy
を採取したい
who is
ギガロマニアッ
particularly
クスの少
interesting,
年
you
が
see.
一人いましてね
That's not a good enough reason to delay the plan. What if Shogun ends up being fucking Albert Einstein?
ノア2の本格
When
稼働は
will
いつ
full
頃になり
operation
そう
of
なの
Noah
か
2begin?
稼働前に最終
As a
実
final
験と
test
して
before activation,
サードメルトを
I'm going to initiate a third melt.
また地震を起こそう
Another earthquake?
予測規模は
How big are we talking?
想定では
Equal in size to the
関
Great
東
Kanto
大震災
earthquake.
と同レベル
The Great Kanto earthquake?
マグニチュード
That was, I believe, magnitude 7.9.
現在の建築基準
Building
と
codes and
免震
seismic
対策レベルを
isolation
考えれば
technology had come a long way
街に
then.
かつてほどの大
Won't
きな
cause the
損害
same
を及
level
ぼ
of
すことはないで
damage.
しょう
だが
But the
犠
number
牲
of
者の数は
casualties
ファ
will
ー
be
スト
vastly
セカンド
greater
の
than
比
the
では
first
な
or
かろう
second melts, right?
およそ5000人
I'm
ほどとい
estimating
っ
it
たところで
around
す
5,000.
少なく見積もっ
At a minimum, that is that a problem?
問題が
You'll take responsibility for this, right?
腹でも切って
Do
死
you
んで
want
み
me
せ
to
ます
commit seppuku right in front of you?
これが最終実験で
This
す
will be our final experiment.
サードメルトが予定
When
通
the
り
third
の
melt
成果を上げ
performs as expected, it will be fully
たノア
complete.
世界の可能性
It
は
will all and all the world's
我ら
possibilities will be
手の
ours.
中に
この公式を前
The
が
second you created this formula, the world split.
世界は分岐したんだ。分岐って
Split? Wait, this isn't an H game.
タク、も
Taku,
う行こう。
let's go.
話
You don't need
聞
to
く必
hear
要なん
this.
てないよ。
Remy grabbed me by the hand and tried to pull me into the room. I could sense her desperation. She was afraid of
葵さ
something.
んが言ってることは
Everything Aoi is saying is a lie.
嘘はそっちだろ。
You're the liar.
葵さん、もう帰る。
Aoi, just leave. Leave Taku alone. Who was I supposed to believe?
たかが
How could a
数式
math
に
formula
なんで
be
そ
so
んなに
important?
目くじら立てるんだよ。
本当に何も分かってないのか。
You don't really know anything?
アインシュタインが唱えた。
Einstein created the equation E equals MC
これ
squared
が
in
発
the
表された
same
ことで
way
核
the
兵器が開
equation
発されると
created
いう未来が生まれたように。
that equation created future where nuclear weapons were real.
お前の生み出した
Your
IR2
invention
も
of
また
IR2 will have the
E
same
イコール
effect.
MC の事
No,
情
an
と同
even
じ。
greater effect on the world.
それ以上の影響力を世界に与えている。IR2
IR2 makes silent weapons possible.
沈黙
Silent
の兵器
weapons?
思考盗撮
Mind
視覚投
reading,
影五感
induced
制御
hallucinations, sensory control. Those were the technologies that Senna had told me about before, the ones in the patent.
ギガロマニアックスは
Gigalomaniacs will cease to be special. No, cease to be
異常ではなく
unusual.
なる。これからはこの忌々しい
These
力
terrible
を
powers
誰
will
もが
now
自
be
由に
useful
使
by
えるようになるん
everyone.
だ。
All you'll need is a device that makes IR2 possible.
もっとも
Of course, before that happened, some of the world's worst scum will monopolize that power for
人々は
themselves
気づかないう
and
ちに
brainwash the
家
rest
畜
of
同
us
然の
until we're
立場
little
にな
more
るよう
than
洗脳
cattle.
されてしまうだろうが。
I didn't know anything about any of this. I had no idea. Even if what Senna's weapon is, what Senna said was true, I never meant to make anything like that. I was just a kid scribbling on a paper. I hadn't done anything wrong. Wow. But then, this I am too. IR2. It explains how a Gigalomaniac's power works. So, what that guy said was right. The most important person was the boy who invented whose eyes are those? He meant Takumi. Kozupi's voice was cheerful, but it wasn't as innocent and pure as she was. Rimi said nothing, but Cinna, her eyes wide, suddenly looked up and staggered to her feet. Why did she seem like she was having trouble walking? Was it because of whatever Rimi had done to her? Kozue, what did you just
お
say?
前今なんて言った
James Stokes. Oopie? Cinna began to storm towards the stunned
おじ
Kozupi.
しゃんって
What man?
誰
The one who told Kozupi how important the D swords were. The first person I talked to since coming to Tokyo. He wore a weird sign that made it had a look that made your nose go, ugh.
なんで
Why didn't you tell me about this earlier? I didn't know it was important.
あいつだ
That's him. I finally found him.
見つけた
Neither me nor Rimi nor Kozue had any idea what she was talking about. All we could do was watch as an intense fury descended upon her.
私は
I can finally
やった
kill his ass. An experiment had been performed, but she never knew. She was a normal housewife, close to turning 40, newly pregnant with her second child. No, maybe she wasn't quite normal. Her first daughter was already only a year away from high school, so there would be an almost 15-year age gap between her children. She was worried that her daughter, who was currently going through puberty, would rebel against having a younger sister, but in fact her daughter was overjoyed. Her husband was a scientist, and between his faith and his research, only rarely came home. But whenever he was home, he did his best to be a good father and a good husband. So while she certainly had her complaints, her love for her husband was firm. The second child was born uneventfully. She was a healthy young girl who weighed 2579 grams at birth. She named the girl Mana. Unfortunately, after that, her husband was transferred to a new location far away from home. Her husband wouldn't last a week without someone to do the chores and make the food, so she had no choice but to send her older daughter along with him. She was now alone with her newborn daughter Mana. At her husband's suggestion, the two of them moved into housing owned by the company he worked for, so rent was extremely low. Her family had originally lived in a condo in the suburbs, but it was far from the city center and hard to get anywhere. The dorm, however, was located right in the heart of Shibuya, and many of her husband's colleagues lived nearby. She'd have easy access to childcare, and if anything came up, she'd have people around who could help her. The place was extremely spacious. The bedroom especially was a favorite of hers. A huge mirror covered the whole wall, and on the other side there was a big window. From there you could look down onto Yoyogi Park. She quickly became friends with the ladies in the nearby residences, and the corporate benefits even included a maid. She was proud that her husband was important enough in the company to have all these benefits, and was more than satisfied with her life of luxury. 2 years passed. Mana's development was a little slow, but she was growing up without suffering any major illnesses. She was, however, a very needy child. If she wasn't constantly held at her mother's breast, she'd start crying immediately. For the past month or so, Mana's mother hadn't been feeling well at all. The ringing in her ears was the worst part. It bothered her almost the whole day. But still, she couldn't let the maid or the lady next door take care of Mana. Mana couldn't stand to be away from her for a second. Not in the bathroom, not when taking a bath. Whenever she even thought of letting the maid hold her for a second, Mana would somehow know and start crying. It was, in a way, endearing to have a young child so reliant on her, but it also meant that she couldn't leave the house for an instant. The maid and her neighbor, though, were there to help. She was so lucky to have met them. Of course, things were gradually getting strange with them, too. A week ago, she'd been talking with her neighbor in the living room when the woman had suddenly started to vomit without warning.
She quickly fled afterward, running outside of the house. Mana's mother hadn't seen the neighbor at all after that, so perhaps she'd gotten sick. Mana's mother then decided to ask her maid to go check on the neighbor. The maid just finishing up for the day when she'd made the request. When she'd finished it with, "And I'll see you tomorrow," the maid suddenly began to cry. The maid just nodded over and over again before leaving. And that night, Mana's mother suffered terribly as the ringing in her ears got even more violent than before, and the pain threatened to split her head open. She tried to call an ambulance, but the phones didn't work. She tried to go get the neighbor lady to help, but even that was too difficult. Her daughter started to cry violently, and the crying made the pain worse. She held Mana tight to her chest, and during the pain, suddenly the crying and the ringing in her ears stopped. The pain in her head was gone, like it had never been there. She looked down and saw she was holding the shriveled corpse of a child. Before she realized that the whole thing was an experiment, her mind broke into a million pieces. An experiment had been performed, but it wasn't what he expected it to be. He was a scientist at Nozomi Technologies and a believer in the Cosmic Church of the Divine Light. He was one of the key figures behind Nozomi Tech's secret project Noah, and the one who'd solved the riddle of FUN to the 10th power times INT to the 40th power equals IR2. He'd offered his pregnant wife as a test subject for the experiment. It was a direct order from the church's leader, a person he admired deeply, but he had also been the one to suggest it to make the experiment a success. It was called the Mana experiment, after the code name given to his wife's daughter. His older daughter was given to a church facility, while he monitored his sequestered wife and Mana 24 hours a day. What his wife had thought was a company-owned condo was in fact a Nozomi Technologies testing facility, and the location of the Noah 2 prototype that he was working on. Mind reading, induced hallucinations, sensory control. His wife and daughter would be used to test the efficacy of these technologies here in this sealed lab. The effects of electromagnetic radiation on the body were ill understood, and he planned to cancel the experiments if anything unusual happened to his wife and daughter. An accident occurred almost immediately. Mana died roughly a month after being born. The cause of her death was unknown. It was an accident, one that nobody could prevent. He was deeply saddened and tried to cancel the experiment, but that wasn't going to happen. It's quite interesting, don't you think? That's what his employer had said. The man had been looking at the strange goings-ons in the test room. His wife had refused to accept the reality of her daughter's death and treated her corpse like it was alive. In fact, from his wife's perspective, she was. This was an effect of the Noah 2 prototype, and in a sense, the perfect chance to test its abilities. His feelings on the matter were irrelevant, and before long, he too began to feel that his wife would be better off if the experiment continued. As he watched his wife through the one-way mirror, cradling his daughter's corpse, it seemed like she was happy with her life. She'd stare at the wallpaper on the opposite side, which looked to her like a window overlooking Yoyogi Park, and whisper softly to her daughter. The two of the research staff took care of her. One would pretend to be a maid, the other the lady next door. As long as the experiment continued, his wife's mind would be just fine. This was, he told himself, what was best for her. Perhaps his mind had broken before hers. And the more time passed, the more his goal changed from the completion of Noah 2 to keeping his wife locked within her dream. And then, after almost 2 years, his employer's words suddenly brought all that to an end. We have enough data. Noah 2 will begin full operation soon. There's no point in continuing this experiment.
Noah 2 is also why you as parents think they didn't have a daughter in the first place. That's also why the neighbor next door got sick, because it's just a fucking rotting corpse.
He fought back as hard as he could, but as a result, he was branded a traitor and removed from the project. As a final thanks for his service, he was allowed to be in the experiment room, hands tied, on the day it was shut down. His daughter, whom he hadn't seen for nearly 2 years, had been brought there as well. When she saw him, she seemed
父
confused.
さんこれはどういうこと母さんに
Dad,
何を
what's
したの
going on here? What did you do to
母さん
Mom?
が抱いているの
What is she holding? He couldn't answer. The guilt kept him from even looking her in the eye. The horrible ceremony was about to begin. The neighbor lady had already become unable to tolerate the stench, and the maid had run out of the lab weeping at his wife's words. The device was shut down. The dream ended, and his wife broke at the sight of her daughter suddenly turning into a desiccated corpse. At least, that's how it must have seemed to her. She snapped, tearing out her hair and ripping the skin off her face with her nails. She began to laugh madly, slamming her head again and again into the walls before grabbing a knife and killing herself by stabbing out her own eyes. Daughter was screaming and crying as she watched her mother's last moments through the one-way mirror. The lab staff grabbed his daughter by the arms and dragged her off somewhere. He didn't know where. He wasn't even allowed to follow the only family he had left. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. He blamed himself. It was all his fault. Whatever his reasons, he'd opted to continue the experiment 2 years prior. It had been obvious that this was how it was going to end. Several days after watching his wife's death, he disappeared. Nobody knew where.
Senna had ended up running off on her own after angrily asking Kozupi some kind of question. Kozupi had gone after Senna. I had no idea what made her suddenly go crazy. Now I was slowly trudging through Shimokitazawa.
I was almost home. It wasn't even 30 minutes from the base. Was Nanami there? Shimokitazawa's streets were busy, though not as busy as Shibuya. The psychic point incident was still fresh in people's memories. Some would point and laugh at me, while others would even take pictures with their cell phones. I hurried home as fast as I could, suffering the feelings of embarrassment and humiliation.
ごめんね
I'm sorry. Rimi was walking a little behind me, her eyes locked on the ground below her as she whispered. She'd said that at least 10 times on the way here.
黙ってて
I'm sorry I didn't tell you. There was nothing I could say. I didn't understand Rimi. That had always been the case. Rimi had been there to support me. She had been there for me. There was so much about her I didn't understand. Until now, I'd always opted to just ignore it. Maybe that was because it felt like if any of those things I didn't understand ever came out in the open, Rimi would go away. And I was afraid of that. Why? Why are you staying with me?
一緒にいてくれるの
I managed to work up the courage to ask that single question. Why would Rimi want to be anywhere near a guy like me? Was it because she was like Yua and trying to set me up for a fall? But the answer wasn't what I expected.
あなたに
I didn't
目
want you
覚
to
めて
wake
ほ
up.
しくないの普通の生活
I
を
wanted you to live a normal life. She didn't want me to wake up? To awaken as a gigalomaniac? Is that what she meant? Rimi knew more about me than I did myself.
一体
Just
君は
who are
何
you?
も
私は
I'm Rimi hesitated.
私は
I'm your friend,
タクの友達だって思ってる
I think.
友達で
I want
い
to
た
be
い
your
な
friend. That means she didn't want me to ask any more questions, but I had to ask, am I a gigalomaniac? You could say
そう
that,
とも言えるし違うとも言え
But
る
you could also say you're not. Which was it? Was she trying to confuse me?
君は
Did you know about IR2? I'd heard about it. Nothing more.
聞いたことがあるだけ
She didn't say who told her about it.
セナがいい
Is what Senna said true?
本当
嘘だよ
It's a lie. She was lying. She was lying when she said it was a lie. I could just tell by looking at her.
君は
Are you? I went to ask her another question but stopped. Was Remy on my side or my enemy? If I asked and got the wrong answer, she might leave me forever. So I couldn't ask. If I pretended nothing had happened, if I just let her lie to me, everything could go back to how it was before. That'd be easier. I'd be happier that way, maybe. Yeah, I should just do that. I could pretend to be an idiot. I could keep her lying to me. She'd saved me enough times that she probably wasn't going to hurt me in the future. All I had to do was give her what she wanted and lead a normal life. Thank you.
ありがとう。
I looked away from her and thanked her instead of asking her a question
守ってくれて
for protecting me.
タク、
Taku. I couldn't think of anything else to say, so I just silently followed the path home. Soon I came to a street I recognized. It was in a cramped, quiet neighborhood. Once in a while you could hear the sound of trains in the distance. I'd known this place since I was a little kid. This was where I'd grown up. I followed the same road to elementary school and a middle school. I just had to turn down the narrow street in front of me, and home would be right there. I was scared to face Nanami, but I had to see whether her arm was still attached. I stepped and took a deep breath to calm myself. Then I went to take a step forward when...
待って、
Wait. I turned back to see that Remy was looking at me. She was on the verge of tears. Do you really have to go?
ね
Please don't
え、も
go.
う
You'll never have
普
a
通じゃ
normal
いら
life
れなくな
again.
るよ。私、
I don't want that for you.
嫌だな。
What did that mean? Let's go back, okay?
あのコンテナハウス、
Back to your home on the
帰
roof.
ろう。私、
I'll stay with you
タ
as
クが
long as
望
you
む
want.
限りずっと一緒にいるから。それで、
We can go to school
一緒に
together.
学校に行って、
We can hang out with
大地の
Daichin.
3人で
And then on the way home, we can stop and get some soba noodles
帰
or
り
go
に立ち食
CD
いそば屋
shop.
さんとか
Thing.
CD ショップとかによって、そうやって
We can keep whatever we have now forever.
僕は
I have to see
会わなく
Nanami.
ちゃ。
いないよ。
She's not
きっ
there.
と
I promise. How would she know? Was she lying again? Was there a reason she didn't want me to go into my parents' house?
私、
I don't want to see you
タ
suffer.
クの悲しむ顔見たくない。
Not again. Stop.
謎かけみたいな
Stop
こ
with
とは
all the
やめてよ。
riddles. I was just sick of it all. Was I supposed to never understand what was going on around me? I couldn't keep playing dumb even if I wanted to. Everybody kept throwing mysteries in my face. I just wanted to remain
実家
ignorant.
に行っちゃいけ
If
ない
there's
理
a
由が
reason
ある
why
な
I
ら
can't
言
go to
っ
my
てよ。
parents' house, then tell me.
こんな中途
I'm
半端
sick
な
of all
の
this
何
half
なんだ。
knowing. Sick of it. I was the one who decided to do things halfway, wasn't it? I was the one who'd run away from things. That's right. I should just keep doing what I've always been doing. Let's just go home. Remy was right. I didn't need to see Nanami. If I went to see her and she was missing her right hand, what was I even supposed to do about it? It'd be my fault, wouldn't it? Nanami would hate me. She'd despise me. I'd be the loser who couldn't save his little sister. I'd know for sure just how pathetic I was. If I kept everything vague and uncertain, I wouldn't feel guilty. Yeah, I should just do that. That was the best move. Don't look at anything. No matter how many mysteries people shoved in my face, I could just ignore them all. I could hide myself away from the whole world. You really are a handful.
ナナがいないと
You can't do anything without me, you know?
だから。
ダメだ。
No. In my head, I heard Nanami's bright, cheerful
なん
voice.
だよ。
No. If I ran away here, I'd never be able to face Nanami again. I'd never be able to come here again. Taku. I clenched my fist, stepped onto the narrow street that led to my home. It was less than 50 meters away. At first, my pace was brisk, then I ran. I headed toward the home where I'd grown up. 30 meters, 20 meters, 10 meters, 0 meters. And then the house I knew so well wasn't there.
あれ
The name on the plate was different. It didn't say Nishijou. The house looked different too. It was much nicer. much newer than the house I lived in. I looked around. I thought maybe I'd stopped at the wrong house, but I was wrong. And besides that, nothing around me matched what I remembered. I thought for a moment maybe I'd gotten lost or gone down the wrong street, but that was impossible. Everything on the way here had been just as I remembered it. The path here was the same. My home wasn't here. I followed the path in my memories, but what I remembered being here wasn't here at all. Instead, it was something else. I was seeing something new. I should know this place well, but it was like I was coming here for the first time.
シャメビューだ。
Jamai who?
違うよ。
No. Remy was standing right next to me, her words an instant rejection.
この世界に
There's nowhere in this world
タクの帰る
for
場所
you to
は
go home to.
ないの。
The light from the setting sun fell into the hospital hallway.
This time of day was particularly dark. It was just before night fell, and the lights hadn't been turned on yet. The chaos had Noah of dinner time had subsided, and almost eerie silence descended in its place. Shogun was slowly moving through the hallway in his wheelchair. The sound of creaking wheels echoed throughout the corridor. He passed several nurses on his way, but none of them looked at him or spoke. Shogun, for his part, didn't seem to find this unusual at all. Frail hands, seemingly made of nothing but skin and bones, turned the wheels again and again. As he passed one of the rooms, a patient named Yamai began to scream. He pointed at Shogun, shouting frantically.
ほら、アミちゃんが帰ってきたよ。またお外に出かけてたんだ。いけないんだ。
誰もいませんよ。
The nurse looked around and chuckled. Shogun was right in front of her with his wheelchair. But still, she said nobody was there.
また山井さんは
You're teasing me again, aren't you, Mr. Yamai? But you won't get me this time.
アミちゃん。
Ami-chan, Ami, Tommy! Yamai kept screaming and getting angrier and angrier. Shogun ignored him and continued down the hallway, turning right. The cream-colored wall suddenly became black. Shogun didn't hesitate for even a moment before the wall. He kept going, and just before it seemed like he would hit, the wall vanished. It simply disappeared, revealed the hallway behind it. Shogun kept going forward. The hallway went on for about 20 more meters before ending. This time for real. There was a single door which opened into a room. Shogun opened the door and went inside. It was a room that didn't exist. The one that had been rumored and ghost stories about in the hospital for years. And the name on the plate outside the door was Nishijo. Got it? Yeah.